The scorching afternoon sun cast long shadows on the cracked pavement of Joe's auto repair. Inside the cluttered garage, the scent of oil and burnt rubber filled the air as greasy hands wiped down tools and tires squealed against the asphalt outside. Emma Carter, dressed in a simple jeans and t-shirt combo, stood by the counter, her hands resting on her purse as she spoke to the mechanic. Her voice was calm but firm. "So, you're saying a simple oil change and tire rotation is going to cost me $1,200? The man behind the counter, burly, bearded, with a smirk that reeked of arrogance, shrugged. His name tag read Frank, and his uniform was stained with grease. He leaned against the counter, chewing on a toothpick. "That's right, lady. Premium service, premium price. If you don't like it, you can take your car somewhere else." Emma frowned. "I checked online. The standard cost for this service is barely $200. Frank chuckled, exchanging glances with one of his coworkers. "Oh, I see what's happening. You're one of those Google experts, huh? Look, sweetheart, this is a professional shop. We charge what we charge." Emma sighed, glancing around the garage. A young man in overalls, clearly a junior mechanic, watched from the side, his expression uneasy. He seemed to know something wasn't right. "Fine," Emma said, pulling out her card. "But I'll remember this." Frank swiped it with a smug grin, pocketing his oversized tip. "Sure you will, lady. Sure you will." As Emma walked out, a quiet smirk played at her lips. If only Frank knew who she really was, because the next time she returned, she wouldn't be some random woman in casual clothes, or she'd be pulling up in a Rolls Royce, and she'd be the one setting the terms. A week later, the air outside Joe's auto repair was thick with the hum of power tools and the chatter of mechanics. Frank stood by the entrance, sipping a can of soda when the unmistakable purr of an expensive engine made heads turn to a Rolls Royce Phantom, sleek, polished, and gleaming under the sunlight, glided into the lot like royalty arriving at a peasant's gathering. The car's presence alone commanded attention, its luxurious aura completely out of place among the battered pickup trucks and mid-tier sedans waiting for service. Frank straightened up, suddenly alert. "What the hell?" he muttered, squinting at the tinted windows. The door opened. Emma stepped out, but this wasn't the same Emma from before. Gone were the jeans and t-shirt. In their place, she wore a designer dress, subtle but expensive, paired with heels that clicked confidently against the pavement. A gold watch glinted on her wrist, and her hair was styled effortlessly, the look of someone used to commanding respect that Frank's smirk faltered. The junior mechanic from last week, the one who had seemed uneasy, looked at Frank, then at Emma, and barely concealed a knowing smile. Emma took slow, deliberate steps toward the shop's entrance, her heels echoing in the sudden silence. She stopped in front of Frank, folding her arms. "I need a mechanic," she said, tilting her head. "You overcharge here, right? That means you must be the best." Frank swallowed hard. For the first time in a long time, he was at a loss for words. Frank forced a grin, tried to mask his growing unease. Well, looks like someone's coming to some money," he said, eyeing the Rolls Royce. Emma chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, I didn't come into money, Frank. I already had it." His smirk wavered. "You see, I let you assume I was just some regular woman off the street last week," she continued, stepping closer. "But here's the thing. I own one of the biggest luxury auto dealerships in the state. That means I know exactly how much a timing belt costs. I know exactly how long it should take to fix it. And I know when someone's trying to scam me." The color drained from Frank's face. His employees had gathered around, whispering amongst themselves. Emma held up a leather folder and snapped it open. Inside were official documents bearing her name, proving her ownership of a high-end dealership chain. "And one more thing," she added. "My dealership has partnerships with some of the biggest car manufacturers, including Rolls Royce. That means if I put out a word that this shop scams customers, do you know what happens next?" Frank swallowed. "Oh, look, you were just what, Frank?" Emma cut him off. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Taking advantage of people who you think can't afford to fight back." The junior mechanic from before stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Ma'am, for what it's worth, I tried to tell him." Emma glanced at him, then nodded approvingly. "I know, and I appreciate that." Frank stammered. Listen, we can work this out. Maybe a free service, or Emma smirked. Oh, I don't need a free service. What I need is for people to know who you really are. She turned to her assistant, who had been silently filming the entire exchange. Upload it, she said. Frank's eyes widened. Wait, no, please, too late. The damage was done. Within hours, the video would go viral, and Joe's auto repair would never be the same again. The moment Emma's assistant hit upload, the video began gaining traction. Within an hour, thousands had seen it. By morning, it had millions of views. The internet loved a good justice story, and this one had it all: a greedy mechanic, a powerful comeback, and the ultimate revenge. The comments flooded in. That mechanic thought he was slick. Look at his face when she pulls out the dealership documents. Priceless. Another scammer exposed. Hope he loses all his customers. Emma is my hero. No mercy for crooks. By the time Frank opened his shop the next morning, something was off. His parking lot was empty, and no customers waiting. No phone ringing. Then his employees started arriving, phones in hand, wide-eyed. Boss, one of them muttered, holding up his screen. You should probably see this. Frank snatched the phone and stared at the video, his own face frozen mid-stammer on the thumbnail. 10 million views. His stomach twisted that IT got worse. Calls were coming in, but not from customers. News stations wanted comment. Angry former customers were leaving one-star reviews. Even local authorities had been tagged, with people urging them to investigate. Then the knock came. Frank opened the door, expecting a customer, but instead, a sharp-dressed man stood before him, holding a clipboard. Frank Peterson. Yeah, who's asking? The man adjusted his glasses. My name's Daniel Walsh. I'm from the Consumer Affairs Bureau. We received multiple complaints about fraudulent charges at this business. We'd like to have a word. Frank felt his knees go weak. His worst nightmare had just begun. Frank's face was a mix of disbelief and panic as Emma stepped out of the Rolls Royce, her heels clicking against the pavement with an air of confidence. The other mechanics, who had once dismissed her, now stood frozen, staring at her with wide eyes. Mrs. Kingston? One of them finally spoke, his voice a mixture of awe and nervousness. Emma gave him a polite nod, then turned her full attention to Frank. I believe we have unfinished business. Frank swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. Look, lady, I'm Mrs. Kingston, she corrected, her voice sharp. And I don't appreciate being scammed. A murmur swept through the shop as more of the workers gathered around, sensing the shift in power. Frank nervously wiped his forehead. Now, let's talk about that special price you gave me, Emma continued, her gaze unwavering. $1,500 for a $100 job? Frank's attempt to bluff his way out of it failed miserably. I can give you a refund, oh, you will. But that's not enough. Emma smirked, pulling out her phone. I've already contacted corporate. Turns out, overcharging customers is a violation of company policy, not to mention fraud. They were very interested in your business practices. Frank's face went pale. You called corporate? Yes, Emma said coolly. And I also sent them a copy of the fake invoice you gave me, along with a few other complaints I found online about how you treat customers, especially women. The mechanics shifted uneasily. Some of them exchanged glances, realizing they might have been complicit in Frank's schemes without even knowing it. The sound of a car pulling up made everyone turn. A sleek black sedan stopped in front of the shop, and a man in a tailored suit stepped out. He adjusted his tie before stepping forward. Frank Morgan? The man asked, his voice crisp and professional. Why, yeah. Frank stammered. I'm Mr. Walters, a regional investigator for corporate. We need to have a conversation inside. Now, Frank looked like he wanted to run, but he knew he was trapped. With a nervous gulp, he followed Mr. Walters into the office, leaving Emma standing there. Victoria's Point, one of the younger mechanics, who had been watching everything unfold, stepped up hesitantly. Mrs. Kingston, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I should have said something when I saw what Frank was doing. Emma gave him a small smile. It's never too late to do the right thing. Stand up for your customers next time. The young man nodded, looking determined. Emma turned to leave, pausing just before stepping in her Rolls Royce. She glanced back at the shop one last time, watching as Frank disappeared into the office, his future uncertain. Justice had been served, and Emma Kingston was more than happy to drive away knowing she had made it happen.